Welcome. You're listening to For the Love of Real Estate, a podcast with Jeffrey Dusan and Adam Stahura.
Well, Adam, it's fun to be back in a new year. Same podcast.
Yeah.
I'm on a construction site today, so hopefully it stays quiet. And there's supposed to be painting, so we should be okay.
Oh, painting's pretty quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not sanding or grinder or drill, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, I think in our next podcast, we'll probably, or the one after that, we'll be at the new office setup, right? Great. So,
Very excited.
now that we're in this new year, we've got all these wonderful deals going. I guess one of the important things to talk about is how to not only get them going, but get them to the finish line. That's one of the key aspects that a lot of folks work so hard up front to generate the lead, turn it into a contact, get it into an appointment, nail the appointment, get the agreement. And at that point are just kind of like, whew, all right, now we're good, until everything falls apart. So let's discuss on how do we bulletproof these transactions, or I guess make bullet resistant at least.
Well, let's talk about one thing. I know bulletproofing your transaction is the theme of today's, but I think there's something that you and I both see, which is a lot of agents do all that work
Mm-hmm.
and they get their new puppy and they're under contract and nothing else matters to them anymore. And they say,
Yes.
I'm just going to hold on to this new puppy and love it and squeeze it and not worry about anything. And that's a big problem. Because you worked really hard to get that deal. You probably took you a few months for it to get to the point where you're writing a contract or you were writing a listing agreement. And we don't want you going through another few months to get your next deal. So it becomes really important to get organized and to follow these steps that we're going to talk about in a little bit. And so that way your transaction goes smoothly and you have time to work on the next one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You stop putting fires, start
that part
acting
is
proactively.
It's so key right there. I'm coaching agents and they're always like, oh, I've got this deal, I've got this deal, I've got this deal. And it's like, okay, well, what is it that you're doing to get the next one? Well, nothing. I've got to babysit these two deals that I've got. And as soon as those close, then they're out scrambling for the next one. So yeah, it's really important to know how you're going to structure your transaction and make it bulletproof so you're comfortable and confident enough to go lead generate to get your next deal.
Yep, completely. So, immediately when you get that transaction, strip out all the important dates.
Mm-hmm.
All the important dates. Get that quickly over to both sides. So my team has a table that has all the typical dates in our contract. Sometimes we have to delete them if it's not, applicable to that particular deal. But we get that. We change days, number of days to dates. And we send that to the other agent. And yes, it's doing their homework. But you know what? I'd rather send it and let there be a disagreement early instead of at the deadline or after the deadline if something was counted wrong or misunderstood. And get those dates on your calendar. Okay, so that's one.
That's really important. Yeah.
I don't like this
that
whole deal of
checklist.
I'm just going to put it up on the board and every day I'm going to do a little bit of work on it. Put it in your calendar, get organized, set reminders, rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
And better have your assistant do that. Okay. Then the next thing on your plate is immediately inspections, right? So you've got to get really organized with getting inspections. We have a letter that goes out to every client when they go under contract, congratulating them for being under contract. And here are the most common inspections that are run by our clients. And here's 3 people that we like in each trade and their name and phone number.
Mm-hmm.
Boom, boom. And that some people like to set them up themselves because they pay for them directly. Other people want us to set it up. How would you like this to happen?
Yeah. And that's obviously looking at the buy side. On the sell side, I want to make sure that I have that same timeline of ensuring when their inspection period starts and when it ends, and what all of the uh, checklists look like for both parties. I want to make sure that even though I'm representing the seller, I still know the buyer's deadlines of what they're supposed to do and when it's supposed to be ready to go.
Absolutely. You should do that. You should do that, pulling all the dates out for any deal you're in, listing or buy side.
Yeah. So with my checklist, I have everything laid out. And even if it's not part of that transaction, I don't delete it from my checklist. I leave everything in and do that full checklist. And then actually ask myself, like, oh, do I need to do this? What has to happen? Because even though I think, oh, I'm not going to need this part of the transaction, and then all of a sudden something changes and you have to go back, and I've already removed that from my list, I just have a full list of everything that has to happen. And once we get under contract, I like to send out an email to everybody that's a part of it, which would include the buy side or the sell side and the title attorney or whoever you're using to close the deal, and say, unless otherwise stated in writing, we all agree that the effective date of the purchase agreement is January 11th, 2020.
Nice.
And then
Yeah, I've never
laying
said
out,
that explicitly, but it's kind of implied that, like, you don't disagree.
Mhm,
I mean, a court of law is always going to go back to the agreement, right?
mhm,
But yes, every little thing you do is another step in the right direction. So you've got inspections, and inspections are going to get, the tougher the market, the more challenging they get.
yeah,
And changing deposits to be non-refundable when people need extensions, that sort of thing, all tactics you can use. There's tons of little tactics,
yeah,
but you need to get organized on inspections. I think after that, your biggest problem is appraisal.
yes.
And I don't know why. Why do we treat the appraiser like they're this super special person?
Because they think they are. Well, they
Well,
are.
we
If
all,
there's an appraiser listening, yes, you are special.
but when we're paying a record price, or when we're the listing agent and we're getting a record price for something, shouldn't we show up and give the appraiser our list of comps and support what just happened?
Yeah. Jeffrey, one of the biggest things that you could really boil down this entire podcast episode to is communication. The best way to bulletproof your transaction is going to be through communication with the buyers, the sellers, the inspectors, the appraisers, everyone, and ensuring that we're all on the same page. It's the communication and sharing with the appraiser what's been done to the property, and sharing with them what your thoughts are on the supporting comps, and really just being open with your communication and making sure that everybody's on the same page. That's the key aspect right there.
And really, that's the biggest job of a transaction coordinator.
Mhm.
People ask me what that job description is, and I say, well, there's a great job description on KW Connect. Go download
Yeah.
it. Resources, leverage, job descriptions. Anyway, that's where you go on the website to get it, by the way. Sorry.
Sure.
Um, you know, the question though becomes, why aren't we doing this regularly? Why isn't this a template that's just saved and you can copy and paste it? The emails are the same on every transaction just about. And when you do it ahead of time, it's definitely the same. It's only different when you're at the last minute and late and there's all these special things that have to be figured out.
Mhm. Yeah, what I've noticed is that some agents don't have a checklist. They kind of practice on their clients and say, all right, well, we'll do this and we'll do this. And then on the next one, they might have a couple things written down. All right, now we're gonna do this. And then it continually grows over time. And really, I would start the other way of having played fantasy realtor enough
Yeah.
before I even had a client, writing out like, all right, this is the process. This is what's going to happen, because your clients are going to ask you what the process is. And if you don't have one, then it's going to show. And that's why it's so important to have your entire process laid out up front and know what direction you're going to go. Even if you've been doing real estate for I mean, I've been in this for what, 16 years now. I would still go to a checklist because there's times when you get so comfortable, and I really call it like a pre-flight checklist because I don't want to
What it
miss
is.
any one part because it will end up in disaster. So I want to follow that checklist.
I'm with you. And you can relate that to the next place that you start have to bulletproof the transaction, which is, uh, what kind of buyer do we have here? What kind of buyer is our client? What kind of buyer is buying on my listing?
Hmm.
Is that a pre-qualification letter or a pre-approval letter? There's
Hmm.
a difference, a big one.
Yeah.
Is that a bank that I've seen pre-approvals that are worthwhile? They're worth the paper they're written on? What are the wiggle words in there? Yes, they can always get out of it. But what are the odds that this deal is going to go to the end?
Hmm.
I pride myself on keeping deals together. And I do that by doing a lot of work up front, setting myself up so that it's always savable.
Yeah.
And we don't have these big donut holes in the beginning that I can't bridge later.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I try to look at is even as optimistic as I am, I still want to look at it from a situation of how could it go wrong? And I want to figure that out as early as possible up front to be able to overcome that later on. So, yeah, if there is a lender that's out of town and doesn't really know the area, and especially if we're doing a special kind of property or project, then I want to vet the person who's lending the money almost as much as the person who's buying the property.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If it's a lender you've never heard of, Google them and see if it's just because you've never heard of them or if it's because there's concern. Do some underwriting, so to speak. Go
Yeah,
back to your client and tell them what you learned. Oh, I never heard
reverse
this bank.
reverse underwriting.
Turns out they're really big in Sedona, Arizona. And this is New Orleans. I don't know why a Sedona Community Bank is lending in New Orleans. That's a red flag to me.
Mhm. Well, I
They
even
might.
saw that. I
There's certainly
really
something curious about it.
noticed that at the beach when we have non-warrantable condos. We've got a lender from Kentucky who's like, "Yeah, I do all the banking. I can do this." And then 2 weeks into it, they find out that they've got to pay for condo docs and they've got to pay for all these other things, and the lender doesn't want to do it and can't even do the loan anyway. And
Right.
we've already wasted 2 weeks. So yeah, I want to find that out up front and figure out, okay, well, if they want to go down that path, what do we do to quickly pivot to be able to save the deal and keep moving forward?
I agree. So the next thing you got to worry about is your other contingencies, right?
Yeah.
What else got thrown in that negotiation? And one I love to put in every deal is that the client is going. If I'm the buyer's rep, um, I want to put in that the wood destroying insect report is going to be supplied by the seller. Now, in Louisiana, a lot of people have termite contracts.
Yeah.
Or WDIR contracts, wood destroying insect contracts. So it makes sense that if you've got a contract with Terminex, they're going to come out for a very nominal fee to give you a report that you're all clean because you pay them an annual fee to do that.
Hmm.
Whereas a buyer would have to pay much larger amount of money. But it's a little thing that gets overlooked all the time because it sounds like it's so easy, but it takes time
Yeah.
to resolve. So what are all your other little contingencies and little things that got thrown in there that you got to worry about and got to deal with? And this is why we don't put things under contract. We put them as pending in the MLS. We want backup offers.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
There's
I
always
always want to get a backup.
And what's important is treating every deal the same. So because if you only put one deal under, as pending, and God forbid it's a client that's of a protected class or anything like that, and even if you did it honestly, that is a big screw up. That is wrong, number one. And number two, you could be in a lot of trouble legally.
Yeah. Well, and also having the processes laid out ahead of time and knowing this is what we're going to do, it makes it your job a lot easier because you're used to the repetitiveness of how it works and how it goes forward. And yeah, like you said, you're not doing different things for different clients. You're keeping it the same. More importantly, it's you control the process and they control the decision. And you need to be in control of that process. And the only way to be in control of that is to have a process.
I say that to clients all the time.
Yeah.
You have the process. You're the decider.
Mm-hmm.
Decisions.
All right. Well, it sounds like the key to bulletproofing is have a process and communication.
Yeah, I mean, is that not everything?
Yeah.
So I think the other thing gets revealed, that gets revealed in these deals is who are you working with on the other side?
Mm-hmm.
Is Adam Stahura on the other end of this deal? Do I have a partner that's going to represent his client's interests first, but is still somebody that's reasonable that I can work with?
Mm-hmm.
That's a big deal. If you've got a brand new agent, then you need to be doing your work and their work, because it's got to be done by somebody.
Yeah, I definitely look at the other side of the transaction and see, looking at the agent, like, oh, who's on the other side representing this? And what do I need to do in order to ensure that we're both going to see a paycheck at the end of this? Because that's the only way you get paid is by getting it closed. So you want to see, is there anything that I can do to help this other agent ensure that we all cross the finish line?
Yeah. And then let's just end where we began, at deadlines.
Yeah.
Deadlines are not flexible. The word deadline, as I was taught, literally comes from a line that was drawn in the sand during war, because they were always too busy to set up prison camps. So they would just draw a line, and they'd have a man with a gun in an elevated position. And if the prisoner crossed the line, they were just shot. And that's how they handled things.
Yeah,
Okay?
I think we still do that in real estate, don't we?
They're serious. This deal of, oh yeah, I'm a day late on my PIR, or we didn't get the appraiser in time, or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Nonsense.
Yeah.
Nonsense. Then negotiate out ahead of time.
Yes.
That's the best thing you can do.
Yes. We want to make sure that we're clear on those deadlines. We communicate them. And it's better to communicate early. If you think that something might not be going the right way, then earlier is better to say, hey, let's go ahead and see what we can get figured out, as opposed to waiting until the day after that deadline is passed. Yep. And then saying, oh, wait, whoops, can we go back? No.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I got. That's my list.
I think that's great. Hey, I would say if we forgot anything, then people need to comment or reach out to us like they've been doing. And,
yeah, that'd be great. We love comments, and we love.
What are you guys doing?
Like that one guy that said we do nothing. That's cool. You do you. Keep plugging along.
That's my favorite thing to do.
Adam, there's no like tricks. I feel like that's the other thing. Like everyone just asks us for like a trick or something like that. There's just basically working smart and putting the time in.
Yeah.
And if you don't put the time in, it shows. And it shows when everything starts to go south. When everything's good, yeah, you get to show up to the closing table with the document suggesting they change the locks and give that for everyone to sign. Like, this is no big deal.
Yeah.
You look fine. But when things are like, when the chips are down and you're ill prepared, it really shows you it's a lack of professionalism.
Yes. Very true.
The other agent sees it too.
Yes.
As your client.
And it's important on how we work with other agents, because we're going to end up working with them again. Yeah. And we want to make sure that
it's a small business.
Yeah, we're good people to work with.
Small
small industry.
And you know what else? When inventory gets to record lows, or when interest rates go up, or when something about the market gets tougher, all these problems just grow.
Yeah.
These categories stay the same, and the number of problems in each one of them just grow.
Yes.
So, well, there's the vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that means it's time.
I think that is time. Well, I'll sign off. Adam, tell them how to see us on the next podcast.
Well, if they're already seeing us on this podcast, then they can also join us on the next podcast it's on obviously Apple and on Spotify and on Google and on Facebook and on YouTube. And I mean, if you really wanted to, I guess Jeffrey could record it onto a VHS tape and mail it to you. That's probably or a cassette tape. So that's probably the only two options that I wouldn't suggest. But yeah, we're available everywhere. Awesome.
We hope you enjoyed listening to For the Love of Real Estate, a podcast with Jeffrey Dusan and Adam Stahura.